relationship management is the key to unlocking your destiny. During this series entitled After We Did, Pastor Wayne explores the connection between the quality of our life experiences and our relationships with others.
And we're back for the next session of, we were talking about, last one we talked about expectations. And so, and how they can really send us into a place of not recovering from relationships well. So just really just try to give some wisdom keys, some little nuggets there on why we put bad expectations or unhealthy expectations on people about, people placement, all those type of things, so on and so forth. Because again, expectations is everything. So, and one thing that I want to talk a little bit about today is discernment of, because again, if you're going to have the right expectations, then we have to understand how to discern people and so on and so forth. But what I've learned is that before you can properly discern people around you, you have to come to a place of not needing them. Because a lot of times our codependent mentality can sometimes mess up our discernment of people, place, things. So let me give an example. Sometimes we connect to people out of our weaknesses, not out of our strengths. So for example, if I have a need to be loved, then a lot of times I'll try to find people because of that need to be loved. So I'll end up now discerning that I want, these people because I'm trying to get the love that I'm looking for. And then now I'm putting all these unhealthy expectations on them because my discernment came out of my weakness, not out of my strength. And so, and that's one thing that I've learned that a lot of people, that what we'll do is that, and a lot of times it was a story in the Bible where there was a lady who could, she was a palm reader type person, and she worked for the devil, she could read people. And so Paul delivered her from that spirit. And so, but because, and this is why they got thrown in jail. The people who owned her per se, or was her people, because they could no longer make money off of her, they had Paul and Silas thrown in jail because they could no longer profit off of her. And so, in a lot of times, that's what happens with us in these codependent relationships. We try to profit off of one another, and when we don't, then it goes south because we try to go after and use each other's weaknesses is a way of attaching to one another. And so, and I've come to find that, and if your weaknesses are so strong in you, you'll find your discernment of the type of people you're going to start finding, and then you end up placing people in your life around your weaknesses, not your strengths. And that's where you begin to start setting your expectations and all of that kind of stuff. So that's why I want to talk a little bit in this session of just really just understanding how to learn how to understand what your weaknesses are, be aware of them, so that way you can begin to now allow yourself to have the right perspective about them and be aware, because that way sometimes that can control who you're connecting to, why you're connecting to them, and then why you put these expectations on these particular people because of what you wanted out of the relationship. So I want to go back over here to Ephesians chapter 3, and I covered this in, I think, not the last but the session before last, about codependence, and just want to just really dive in that a little bit. So, and I'm going to go here. It says, verse 17, Ephesians 3:17, it says that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, that you being rooted and grounded in love, that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, that you being rooted and grounded in love, which means that if I'm rooted and grounded in the right thing, and then it says, may be able to comprehend with all saints. So now it shows that where I get my love from shows my discernment of the people around me. So he's saying is to know the, it then says rooted and grounded in love, may be able to comprehend with all the saints what is the width, length, depth, and height. So all that's is really a great way of saying that to navigate these relationships, all different types, the width, length, depth, the height, the discernment, to work through the expectations and all of that. He's saying that for me to have the proper discernment on the relationships, I first got to be rooted and grounded in the fact that I'm loved first. Not me thinking that I not love, but let me now go out and try to find the people to get love. And when I don't know it, then a lot of times it'll create a weakness in me to where now I want to go out and try to look for it. So now, and then it says to know the love of Christ, the love of Christ which passes knowledge, that you may be filled with all the fullness of God. So he's basically saying that, what does it mean be filled with the fullness of God? When you know your love, then therefore it keeps me from using my weaknesses to actually connect with relationships. So meaning that if I have a desire to be happy and all of that kind of stuff, then you can sometimes find yourself connecting with people. I'll give you an example. I know a person, I guess I won't put it, out there, but that's close to, I know a person where they were depressed, but this other person was happy go lucky and all that. So, and the one person felt like they became friends in middle school, but then the one went into like this big depression. But whenever she was around, she would always be happy. But it was wearing the other person down because she wasn't in the relationship. Because it started out they were cool, but it became where she needed her to make her happy. And so because she wasn't rooted in getting her love for whatever she needed from the right place, she was using this other person and wearing it down because it was like she was the one that was giving, because she was encouraging her, strengthening her, and all that type of thing. But then this other person was like, I don't even want to be a friend. And like, how do I even, tell her that I don't even want to be friends? And I said, I don't even see her as a friend because, she felt like friends to somebody who, build one another up, not, wear you out, and where it's like it's a drag to try to I gotta always be there to pick you up. So what happened was somebody, and this is what I was, telling, I said, somebody who you may have called to help became your friend, but because they're in the friend category and they're supposed to help them, then therefore it became draining. Because friends it's about iron sharpens iron when you're friends. But when you're called to somebody who with it's established in the beginning that you're called to help them, then it's a different type of relationship. But now it was the friendship or the relationship came out of a connecting out of her weakness to keep it going versus her strength. A lot of times that's what we'll do. We'll actually sometimes we'll get into relationships. I don't want to be lonely. I don't want to be by myself. So what does that mean now? So I'm going to go out and do the right thing. I'm going to make friends and all that. But I'm making friends out of my weakness of not being alone. And so because I don't want to be lonely and I don't want to be alone, I'm going to go out and get all these followers on Facebook or Twitter or IG, whatever your platform is. I'm going to go out here and make and make friends and all of that kind of stuff. I'm going to fill my life up with all these people and everything, so on and so forth. And then now, out of that comes a lot of times a lot of misplacement of people and a lot of false expectations because my discernment of connecting with people is coming out of my loneliness, not out of my strength of knowing that I'm loved. Okay, so now we realize that the fact that you don't want to be lonely is a issue that you're trying to use people to fill, and then it creates a problem. So then it says, to know the love of Christ which passes knowledge. So when you know your love, in other words, this isn't something you get from people out here. This is something that comes internal from God. And once you get that from internal from God, then now I'm able to now hook up with you for good reasons, healthy reasons, not unhealthy reasons. So now I'm not here trying to use you in a sense of exploiting. And then there's other people who know that you're lonely. They will exploit your weakness for their gain. but you opened that door because you wanted the relationship for your weakness. And so, and a lot of times that's what happens with us, is that we allow our weaknesses to drive our relationship choices instead of letting us be able to make sure that my heart's position for why I want relationships is right. I do it for the wrong. Then now my discernment is all jacked up. And so because I'm making decisions out of my weakness. So now one thing I did want to talk about, and maybe I'll go through some scriptures and explain it later on, but just to give you some basic ones. So our body, I think, is made of like 75-80% water, something like that. And so what I mean by that is that when we drink water, only water can really quench our thirst. I mean, one time I was playing out in the yard one time, and there was no water around, but we had sodas. And I remember drinking that soda. I was thirstier. It was just bad experience. I'm like, my God. I thought it was going to help because it was liquid. So I'm thinking it'll quench, but the sodas actually made the thirst worse because my body was looking for water because it needed the thing, because water is what need to be replenished. So meaning that when you don't know you're loved and you don't get it from the right source, and then you sort of like use people like sodas to try to fill that need, sometimes it makes it worse. And so what happened was, once I got some water, of course, it got better. But anyway, so what I'm saying is that like our bodies need water, we all want to be loved. I mean, that's just a God instinct. He put it in all of us. We all want to know we love. We all want to be loved. It feels good. That's why when we go through rejection, that's why rejection hurts sometimes, because it's a thing that my God drive to be loved is being attacked. Because what does love communicate? Love, like one of the things. So let's go through like how we process. Everybody processes. We all need each one, but we all process one more than the other. So, for example, the Bible says, "Wives, respect your husbands." Why? Because men feel love when they know that they're trusted and that they're heard. That's like that's just something God put in men. So, in other words, I know I'm loved through respect. What does that mean? You value my plan. You value my leadership. You value where I want to go. So therefore, I know I'm loved. Well, wife says, husband, love your wives, which means that they know that they're loved when you pay attention to what they say. And like myself, my wife, she can, if something bothers her, she just wants to just, get it off her chest. She's not asking me to fix it. She just wants me to just listen and make sure that I'm hearing what she's saying and all that. So in other words, putting that time and attention. In other words, I'm valuing what she's saying. I'm valuing what bothers her. I'm valuing what really. So in other words, she's understanding that she's loved through those ways. So, words of affirmation. That's like a big one, where when people say you're doing great, I believe in you, I know you, that those words of affirmation is like, I know I'm loved when somebody can see good and speak well of me off the things that they see. It's like I just process like, man, I'm loved. But when somebody will say, good for nothing, you never do anything right, it's like, so then a lot of times over time, if that's all you're around, then now it creates this need. Like now I'm going to hunt for a compliment. So it means that when I give a compliment, I'm not giving you a compliment because I want you to have it. I'm giving you a compliment so you'll compliment me back. So when I say, man, those shoes are nice. Oh, my shoes ain't nice? Oh, okay. See, that'd be the last time I tell you that your shoes. So a lot of times because I didn't get what I wanted. Therefore, so in other words, I gave a compliment, but I did it for me trying to reach my weakness, to fill that void of me, my weakness. All right. So I want you to understand those things. All right. So that's why we have to realize, like, these are the things sometimes is our decision-making controller. And so you need to know what drives, like, another one is supported. Some people know that, and that was the whole thing with John the Baptist we talked about. The thing was he didn't feel supported in his time of crisis. And so because he didn't feel supported, then he got mad at Jesus because, hey, if I had your back and got you going, why don't you have my back in my season? So then now, because I didn't feel supported, then he felt a certain way. And then therefore he wanted to use the offense to basically try to use and question Jesus, to basically now I want to use manipulative tactics to get my support. So like, can't say, is this the one? What is he really saying? So basically saying, I'm going to question you to see if you actually going to step to the plate and support me. And a lot of times that's what happen. We'll do is we will get, and when we're not getting what we want, we can sometimes be very manipulative. We'll use guilt tactics. We'll do things to try to get people to do what we want, because that's the only way I understand how to get my needs met. So I end up using people in my relationships instead of being a blessing in the relationships. All right. So I just want to go through a couple of stories here. I'm going to use Luke. Well, I'm gonna go to Philippians first, then we'll finish off with Luke. Philippians chapter 2. Now, this is something Jesus said. It says, "Let this mind be in you, which also is in Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God, did not consider it robbery to be equal with God, but made himself no reputation, taking the form of a bondservant and coming in the likeness of men. And being found in an appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient, even unto the point of death, even of the cross. Therefore, God also highly exalted him, giving him the name which is above every name." So it's a lot in that. So I just want to pull out a couple of points here. It says, "Let this mind be in you." So in other words, let this be your mindset. Let this be the way you think about things. Who being in the form of God, right? So understanding, let's put it in our context. We know that we're not God. We are, how can I say, with his creation, we're in the class where he gave us dominion, all that, but we're not, gods in that way. So, but what is he saying? Let this be mind be in you. Right? Because in other words, I understand. He says, being in the form of God, did not consider robbery to be equal with God. In other words, I know that I'm valued, and I know that I'm loved, and I know that I'm great. But he says, made no reputation of taking on the form of a bondservant. So he basically said, I have to have this mindset that I'm loved, but I don't need you to get it. That's the point. Like, in other words, you got to come to a place rooted and grounded in love. I got to come to a point where, and I'm going to tell you something, true freedom. This is when you know you're really free. And when you really be, and again, this is the journey forward. So I'm not saying that we all wake up this way. I feel like it's a journey and a process, what I'm about to tell you. But I believe this is where we all have to get to. It's a day where you never need a person's opinion to know that you're great. The day I'm free from people's opinions to know that I'm great and I'm loved is the day I'm free to love people. But as long as I need people to tell me that I'm great, I will always find a way to be manipulative or even misuse my relationships, because I'm trying to, use them to reaffirm something that God says you get from him. And so look what it says. He made no reputation, taking the form of a bondservant, coming in the likeness of men. Found as a man, humbled himself. So now what we're saying is no longer about him. Why? When you get what you need, you no longer go into a relationship. And this one thing, everything reproduces after its own kind. What does that mean? And after his own likeness. Like when God created everything, that zebras go to zebras, lions go to lions, all that. So I want you to realize is that takers go to takers, givers go to givers. A taker, a lot of times, will not, a giver, a lot of times cannot hook up with a taker. Like it just won't fit. Givers, because like birds of a feather flock together, as they say. So when you're a taker, usually you'll hang around. In other words, when you go into relationships trying to meet it's about you, and usually you're going to go into a relationship where it's about them. So in other words, and here's where we miss it, because your version of taking is different than theirs. You thought that they were the taker and you was the giver. Now realizing that takers hook up to takers, givers hook up to givers. So when I'm, because you have to, I guess there's some illustrations, I'm not going to use it right there, but I can get some illustrations where, people will go into relationships and use people, for that. So I guess I'll just put it out there. So like in the world of, people, females who may strip for a living, right? But they needed to make money, and all that type of stuff. So, but who gives them the money? The guys go there because they want to be entertained and all of those type of things. So you got a taker basically working with another taker. But if you have a man who values a woman, they're not going to support her in that way. Because in other words, because I'm a giver and I want to be a blessing, this is not being a blessing. We're actually both taking advantage of each other's weaknesses. And so now we understand, like, that may be a hardcore illustration, but understand that's how we do it in other things. In other words, I'm lonely, so I'm gonna hook up with somebody else who may want somebody too. Or and so in other words, oh, you're lonely, so, and that's when we have to be careful with that. And one thing I found out with guys is this: sometimes men, we can have the savior complex. Some men, not all. What I mean by that is the woman is down and out, and she's having a hard point in life, with the guys a little more established. So he feels like I can be, Captain Save him, which means that I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna give you everything you want. And I've seen it where the woman who needed a man because they was looking for security, and then that guy said, I can come and be that. And usually eventually breaks down. Like it's off to a good start, but eventually their weaknesses begin to slowly unravel their relationship. So in other words, but the reason why a lot of times the guy comes in there is because he wants to be told that he's great. But once the woman is getting, and it, just trying to feel, it just creates a never-ending story. So that's why we have to come to the place of that. I know I'm loved, I know I'm respected, but outside of that, so I can come into the relationship looking to be a blessing, not get a blessing. Because if I go to a relationship looking to get, I'm going to actually find somebody else who's going to want to go in and get it. It's going to look different than yours. We give it, we do it differently. So a lot of times, because my getting is different than yours, and I feel like mine is justified. I want you to understand that takers hook up with takers, givers hook up with givers. It's like that's the main thing that happens that way. So I want to share this one last thing, and then we'll shut it down. This is in Luke chapter 9. Luke chapter 9 says, this is when Jesus was going to a hometown, going to a village to help them, but they didn't receive him. So I just want to show you a couple of points out of this when we talk. Now it came to pass, this is Luke 9:51, chapter 9, verse 51. Now it came to pass when the time had come for him to receive up, he steadfast his face to go to Jerusalem, and he sent messengers before his face. And as they went, they entered the village of the Samaritans to prepare for him. But they did not receive him because his face was not set for the journey to Jerusalem. Now that's a whole, another side piece about the Samaritans and the Jews, but that's not the point I want to make here. And when his disciples, James and John, saw this, they said, Lord, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them just as Elijah did? And he turned to rebuke them and said, you do not know what manner of spirit you are of, for the Son of Man did not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. And they went to another village. Now that's huge. Jesus was dealing with rejection. And so the James and John, they took it as, oh, you don't want to receive us? Now you're about to feel all the backlash from what, saying. That's all like saying, oh, you want to treat like this? Oh yeah, you're gonna feel this get back. And look what happened. And look what Jesus' response was. I didn't come to take, I came to give. So because I'm not coming to lift myself up and make myself great, therefore I can handle the rejection, no problem. I can move on to the people who I'm called to instead of getting mad at the people. Why? Because his weaknesses wasn't driving his relationships. He already knew that he was loved, and he already knew within himself that he was great. So the rejection, he didn't take it as rejection. He took it more as direction versus rejection. And so that's why we have to understand, when you know that you're loved, then therefore I can begin to deal with other people and go in and find out how to connect. And then also all those expectations come with that. All right, well, that's my time for today. I just want to say God bless you all. And I say have a blessed one. And like I always say, stay blessed by the best. And we'll see you here on the next episode.
Thank you for joining Pastor Wayne Powell Sr. on this edition of Relationship Wednesday. We hope you enjoyed the episode of After We Did. Let's keep the conversation going by leaving your questions and comments in the chat. We also invite you to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And don't forget to click the notification bell so you are reminded to join us next Wednesday as Pastor Wayne continues the discussion of After We Did.